Congratulations, Zach, and all of your team at the Inertia for pulling off such a wonderful, wonderful day. Thank you all for showing up and for being here and participating in the conversation. I've been in his shoes in different ways where, you do your best, you work hard, and then you literally just sit and hold your breath and hope that people come. We can't just talk to ourselves. You guys are the ones that make the difference, so thank you. I want to talk a little bit about Aloha. How many of you have gone to Hawaii at some point? Most of you, right on. Aloha is something that you hear all the time in Hawaii. Greets you in the airport as soon as you land. You see it in movies, but very rarely do you hear about the true meaning of Aloha and how we apply it in our lives. That it's so much more than hello and goodbye, and that when you greet someone in the native Hawaiian traditional sense, what you're really saying when you say aloha is, I come to you with an open heart. I'm coming to you with respect, with love, and with care, and with the recognition of our interconnectedness, a recognition of our responsibility to each other because of that interconnectedness, regardless of where we come from or what our beliefs may be about things, what country we're from, ethnicity, race, sexual orientation, all the things that can make us unique. We are all interconnected. That responsibility that we feel not only to each other, but to our home, to our planet. So we can say aloha to each other. We can feel aloha towards each other, and we can make that choice every single day to live aloha through our actions and the way that we go about our lives. And it's so perfect being able to sit here and hear from Tom Carroll himself and hear about his journey and how he has made that decision at critical points when it was deeply unpopular. But to me, he is that example of someone who embodies that aloha. Because that's what gives you courage. Sometimes people say, Tulsi, why do you talk about love all the time? Love is weak, love is for girls, this and that, whatever. Without recognizing that for Tom, it was love for others and care for others that drove him to take that action, that courageous action, that was not at that moment helpful for his career, but he knew it was the right thing to do. And that's where I see examples like his are so important for us to reflect on and to be inspired by during these challenging times that we have as we stand and walk through our own paths in our own lives, whatever that may be, and think about, what can I do? It's so easy to scroll through Twitter and turn on the news and complain and bemoan all of the things that are happening right now, both in this country and in the world. There are many, many challenges. It's harder for us to look in the mirror and say, how can I put this aloha into action? How can I bring this light and this love into a conversation, rather than adding layer upon layer of darkness and divisiveness and anger and hatred? If we want change, we collectively are the ones who will make it happen. That is the only way it will happen, is if we choose to do so. If we choose to do nothing, then what a disgrace that we are leaving behind for our kids, for the next generation. You heard Tom talk about how he was standing alone, and then the next year there was 5. Then the next year that multiplied and it multiplied and it multiplied. So while that singular action may be lonely at first, or it may seem lonely at first, you may not realize the ripple effects that that decision in that moment can have, both in your world, but extending beyond that. And that's really what happened with me. Growing up in Hawaii, we grew up outside. We grew up hiking. We grew up playing in the ocean. I first learned how to swim at Ala Moana Beach as a little kid. In Hawaii, understanding that environmentalism wasn't just a fancy word. It wasn't like a political thing about what bills you're going to support or what you're going to advocate for. It was a way of life. How could you not fight to protect our oceans? How could you not fight to protect our air and our land? Because this was our home. So finding ways for me when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, to take action, not only to go and like, hey guys, let's go clean up the beach on the weekend, but then continue to see, okay, what more can I do? What more can I do? What more can I do? And the more I did that, the more I understood what I had been taught growing up, which is the most deeply rewarding feeling you can have in life is when you are living that aloha, when you are taking action not for yourself, but for others. And I saw that as we were doing beach cleanups, as we were going to elementary schools and teaching kids about what happens when you throw your empty soda can out the window of the car, what happens when you dump a bunch of pesticides in your garden. Real consequences to real everyday things that we have and how that impacts our home. I saw that out surfing, surfing next to a kid who was struggling to get a wave all morning, then finally say, hey, go, take my wave. And you see the joy in that kid's face, like raising his arms at the end of the wave. Like it was a better feeling than if I had caught the wave myself. The small things and the big things, thinking, how can we live aloha? As we look at our oceans, as we look at our environment around us, there is a lot more attention being paid now to how our everyday actions are impacting our environment. Every year, 8 million metric tons of plastic goes directly into our oceans. We've all seen the tragic images of the sea turtle with the plastic straw stuck in its nose, too many dolphins trapped in fishing nets and birds covered in plastic. In Hawaii, a recent study found that an average of 2,600 daily visitors to Hanauma Bay left behind 412 pounds of sunscreen. 412 pounds of sunscreen coming from 2,600 people. Think about the impact that that has on our marine life, on our coral reef. Hawaii recently was the first state in the country to pass a ban on 2 harmful chemicals found in everyday sunscreens. Very proud. And so now we're working on legislation in Congress to be able to do the same across the country. We're looking to see how we can support scientists and entrepreneurs and innovators who are coming up with alternatives to single-use plastics, finding creative ways to address these daily things in our lives that have become staples but have become so harmful. Last year, I introduced a bill called the Off Fossil Fuels Act. Lays down a pathway to reduce our reliance on fossil fuels and the billions of your taxpayer dollars that are going to these fossil fuel companies, and put us on a truly achievable path towards 100% renewable energy by 2035. This bill invests in our workforce. It invests in really, truly creating a clean, green energy economy, one that is not poisoning our air, those workers who work in that industry, polluting our water, or eroding our land. Now, I got to tell you, when I first introduced the bill, there were people in both parties who said, God, Tulsi, that is way too aggressive. That is way too ambitious. Why don't you just take this baby step by baby step? Speaking of Nelson Mandela, and I love how Tom called him Nelson. Isn't that great? Speaking of Nelson Mandela, though, he said, it always seems impossible until it is done. And so since we introduced it, we've had over 400 groups, environmental organizations across this country add their names and their efforts to this legislation. Over 40 members of Congress have signed on as co-sponsors, and we're continuing to build that momentum and raise awareness about the need for urgent action now. The time for baby steps is long gone. I want to close with an experience that I had back in November of 2016, where I answered a call to action along with thousands of veterans from across the country. We all converged at Standing Rock in North Dakota on one very, very cold weekend to join the water protectors who were there to say that we cannot build this oil pipeline over this major water source, not only for the Standing Rock Sioux tribe, but the people in the surrounding communities in 4 states who would be impacted by it. I landed around 10 or 11 o'clock at night at the Bismarck Airport. If you've never been there, it is smaller than any airport we have in Hawaii. Maybe Lanai, comparable. But that airport was packed. As I walked through the baggage claim, it was packed with people of all walks of life, all different generations. I started talking story with them, and I met veterans who had served in Vietnam, who had served in the Gulf War, who had served in the post-9/11 wars. And what I heard from them was amazing, because these people were Democrats and Republicans and independents and libertarians, people of all religions and races, but there was a spark in their step and a sparkle in their eye that I found incredible. And I heard from a couple of them that night as we were waiting for our bags that this was the very first time that they felt that they had a higher purpose to serve and protect since they had worn the uniform. That veterans who have served our country and put their lives on the line for this country converged by the thousands to this tiny town in North Dakota to protect water. Because they understood that without water, there is no life. People talk about jobs and these pipelines creating jobs that strengthen the economy and all this stuff, ignoring the fact that if you poison our water, you're poisoning our people, you're poisoning our land, and you are decimating our future. So to stand there during that weekend with all of these veterans from all parts of the country who understood that in the deepest way, and who in their own way took that aloha in action. They answered the call to duty. They borrowed money. They drove, carpooled. One guy walked from Kansas in the middle of winter to North Dakota because it's that important. It's that important that in our own way, every one of us find a way to choose to take action, to choose love in action. And so that's my hope for all of you, is that as you've heard tremendous leaders throughout the day today, inspiring leaders, people who have been successful in their own paths in many different industries, that you think about what you can do. I was 21 years old when I first ran for office in Hawaii, motivated by this desire to do more. And everyone around me said, don't do it. It's a waste of your time. But enough people believed and trusted in my purpose and why I wanted to serve them. And so I talk to young people all the time who say, well, I don't know what I can do. I'm just this, I'm a teenager, I'm a college student, or I'm 25, or I'm 35. One of my favorite quotes from Mahatma Gandhi is, a small body of determined spirits, fired by an unquenchable faith in their mission, can truly alter the course of history. The odds and the obstacles, more often than not, seem too great and against us, the people. You've got big money, you've got big special interests, you've got big power, big media, big everything. Change always happens when it's driven by the people. That's every one of us. So I hope that you feel inspired by the Aloha spirit that exists within every one of us and makes this choice in your own life. Thank you so much. Aloha.